Well, so, it has been a short while since I last made my video. I blew up my foot and got a lot of work as well. These are more of a casual thing I do from time to time, so there's also that anyway. But it's really not a big deal. If you have watched my last video, then you may remember all the armor experimentation I made and the takeaways that I had from it. If you have not watched my video, you really should, because it's good content and also I like views. In short, sets of smaller blocks absorb all damage better than bigger blocks, with some armor types struggling against bullets, others against explosions, some just bad all around, struggling at their most basic tasks. Composite armor, as I named it, excelled in all of its tasks, not folding once while all other armor types were destroyed at least once across all of our testing runs. That lasted for more than 20 minutes, which is why the last video was so stupidly big. And its effectiveness is undeniable. Indeed, it is almost laughable just how efficient it is. The expected outcome I'm sure most would expect would be for the smaller blocks to be thrown around like tiny Legos at the site of any explosions. And that very often was what I heard from people that did not believe in the theory. But as we can see, the opposite often happens, as the connections of smaller blocks most often were the ones to hold out the best, while bigger sets of blocks often did not offer as much resistance, at all. And the question obviously is, why? Why is that so? Why do these smaller blocks do exponentially better against bullets, explosions, kinetic energy, etc.? When first developing composite armor, I could not for the life of me tell you why exactly it happened. It was a discovery born out of pure chance, as I was just joking around with friends. Yeah, nothing much. And by the time I came to that conclusion, I had already thought I had the best possible armor setup in place, that being some shield armor with its drastic bullet absorption capabilities in several layers to also hopefully tank a few cannon shots, but that was not the case. Far from it. The answer, seemingly, lies in two mechanics in this game. First off, how HP works. It is obvious that each block has its own set of HP. That's how damage goes in and kills shit. If it reaches 0, it dies, obviously. However, there is no easy data on how much HP each block has to be naturally found out there. So, the easiest way to find out how each block does when taking damage is to line them up and do some war crimes. A friend of mine, Arthur, went balls and, out of his free will, even without me asking him to do any sort of these things, he decided to throw away 12 hours of his life shooting stuff and writing down how each block did, testing with bullets to see how many were needed to take each block down. As he wrote them down, some very interesting data was found. First of all common blocks, except the 4x8, take 4 bullets to be destroyed. Yes, a 1x2 has the same HP as a 2x4 or a 2x2x2. That explains why they seem to be taken down at the same speed. There's not a single difference in how long they last, and with more 1x2s in a space than 2x4s, that partially explains why the armor worked as well as it did. Funnily enough, the same applies to shield blocks. They all have the exact same HP as well. They all require 14 bullets to be out. So a 1x2 shield will take just as many shots as a 2x4. Pipe blocks have the same HP as normal blocks, which means a 1x1 pipe has as much HP as a 2x4. The 4x8 can take up to 8 shots before breaking. That might sound bulky, but you can place several 1x2s or 1x4s in that space to have much more HP in place, this being fundamentally how composite armor does as well as it does. How much exact HP does each block have? We don't know. It's hard to know when we barely have damage numbers either. So to measure all this data, a unit was created, the UND. Each UND is equal to a bullet. Bullets that don't have any sort of damage variation, by the way. Miniguns, smart cannons, and small cannons, they all deal the exact same damage per bullet. And blocks were measured in how many bullets they would take before breaking. Very simple. Whole blocks, for example, have 10 UNDs, so they require 10 bullets to go out. That might seem like a lot, but then again, you can fit many more blocks in that area and they will all take more bullets, equal a higher combined UND. Due to how HP seems to be the same, in the same a 2x4 occupies with a total of 4 UND, you can fit 4 1x4 1x2s, which all in that small space are going to total 16 UND, 4 times stronger. And if you fit in 1x1 pipes in that exact area instead, you are dealing with 32 UND. Staggering numbers with these. However, when we especially look at the 1x1 pipe numbers, those are some very staggering complexity numbers. And it's very, very costly to apply those. However, Arthur noticed something. Along shield blocks taking 14 bullets before going out, there are also weight blocks. A UND of 14 in a 2x2 area. A 2x2 of 1x2s, for instance, has a UND of 8. A single 2x4 has an UND of 4, while 2 weight blocks in that same area have an UND of 28. According to this theory, weight blocks are the optimal armor plating when it comes at a balance of complexity costs and full-on tankness. But that theory required testing. Testing round. Alright, so I got this machine, right? This is the exact same setup I used on my last video. So that's naval armor, right? Just whole blocks. Fire that shit. They break. It's immediately exposed, like one click. It just bends, alright? So it's dead. Next, just like spam block armor, alright? So like, it just got a aim over there. I shoot. Also goes through. Right? Like, there's already a big hole over there. Everything's dead. Now, there's this, alright? This is that massive, like, brick. It's got 1x2 shields, weight blocks. Look at that shit. I go again. Look. So as you can see, the effectiveness is just absolutely over the top when it comes to absorbing bullets. It does a much better job than anything I have ever made before. I'm just shooting non-stop at one single spot. It just does not break. Like I ain't even like doing pass buys. I'm just shooting at one single spot. It managed to like one hole after all of that. One hole. And then, let me show you this. So like, I just look. I fire this. I keep going. How much damage does it do? So, as you can see, the blast absorption does quite a nice job at just absorbing blows non-stop. Missiles can't even dream of penetrating this thing, and cannon shells barely do any better. Alright, so like this is 3 missiles, like they're all shooting in perfect sync. Like, look at this. Barely does anything. This is just rough. Proving that correct. A plate of weight blocks and two 1x2 shields is said to be 40% stronger than one that uses only 1x2s, and over 200% stronger than one made of 1x4 blocks. Mind you, in my last video the composite armor shown was made of 1x4 blocks with 1x2 shields. Their only downside is weighing as much as they do. These blocks are as strong as shields, making them much more reliable against bullets when part of armor plating, seeing that now shields are not the only part of the armor that's really capable of taking in that damage. What usually happens with past composite armor is that once the shield layer is breached, some bullets will easily pierce through the blocks. This is not the case here. However, that was not the only discovery made. No. There's something else. How damage is calculated for explosions. You see, we all know explosions are an AoE based damage. A cannon shell hits you, it explodes, and fucks everything up in the area. It is expected that one of these damages will only hit the surface layers of any armor set, but that's not how it works. What I found to be true is that AoE is absolute. It goes past the first layer of defense into the next field, and maybe even to the inside of the vehicle if the armor is thin enough. What we have also found out is that the blast's AoE tries to damage all blocks in that area at once, with apparently a cap in its total damage. If enough blocks with high enough wound are around, its immediate damage will be drastically reduced, as damage spreads through them equally and ends up being absorbed, resulting in either these blocks being damaged or destroyed in that area. So, to sum it all up, when fighting against an explosion, what matters the most is the total wound in that immediate area. If it has low wound, it will be wrecked as damage is too high on these pieces. If it is high wound, it is absorbed across all of them. Lastly, Arthur figured out a way of placing 1x2 shields in such a way that makes them much more likely to stick around for longer, instead of falling if a block behind them does. With this here being the case, it doesn't do much difference when facing explosions, but bullets will struggle a bit more when facing it, as now if a block falls behind them they won't fall but keep in place, steadfast, for longer, adding in about 10 to 20% efficiency against bullets at times. So with all of that in mind, I have developed two of these types of armor. These differ from the composite armor that I had previously shown to you, and this is what I call Composite Armor Mark II, and its light and heavy variants. This heavyweight armor makes full use of these mechanics that I had just explained to you. It absorbs explosions and bullets just much better than anything else possible in this game. It is quite cheap for a very high resistance, with its only failure being the fact that it is just so incredibly heavy. And it makes use of two layers of shields, one over here in the front and one in the back, while it possesses 3 layers of weight blocks. This is what I have found to be the most optimal defensive line that you can make. Of course, you can make it stronger simply by making it even more thicker, but this is just as well as you're going to get for when it comes to price and award ratio. This right here, it is light composite armor. It is the opposite of that version right here. It is made out of grid blocks. Grid blocks that I have found to be just as resistant as normal blocks when dealing with all sorts of damage. And they twice much less. Normal blocks will weigh 2 times more than this. So if you want to make a tank airplane or a boat or something that really requires as less of weight as possible, then making several layers of word blocks with them being smaller the better to pack more oomph in that, while possessing all of these small shields makes for an armor piece that absorbs explosions and bullets very well. These two compose the composite MK.2 versions. Stronger, lighter, better. The heavy version, in specific, is much cheaper than previous composite armor relative to the protection it gives. One plate of this armor does much better than the layers of composite armor Mark I, making complexity much less an issue for relative protection. Perfect for tankier ground builds that really don't care about their weight. And to demonstrate the full power of that, with how cheap yet strong this armor is, I have built what I call the Sun Kong, a tank that makes full use of this heavy plating. Relatively fast for a vehicle that weighs almost 7 tons, this behemoth is the best armored out of all, with an average of 8 to 10 shots to penetrate its angled frontal armor that also excels against kinetic projectiles due to that same angle. And bullets don't even scratch it. This is the closest to a functional MBT that I have ever developed in this game. Due to how relatively cheap this is, it's also decked out on the sides, back, and its turret too. In older models I actually had to really limit where I used my composite armor because it was so expensive. But in here, it really did not matter. For now, this is the best armor possible within the game. Besides, of course, 1x1 tube blocks that have 2 oomph extra over the weight blocks. However, it's very complexly expensive and it's very hard to use outside of builds that make use of the complexity mod. But there's a tech that may allow for them to be used in vanilla. But well, this has been Masquerados, and I hope to have helped you. See you later.